What's up, my wizards? Dev, SBMTG, down there on the YouTube.com. We like magic, and we got Tuesday Amonkhet spoilers for you. There's a lot of spoilers today, and some of them are really crazy, so don't have much time to waste. Let's go ahead and get into it. Well, there were 10 cards from today that I think might actually have a little bit of play. I don't think that all of these are just limited fodder, but there are about 10 cards from today that I think I can run through real quick before I get to the stuff that I really want to talk about. So let's start with Doom Dissenter right here. Doom Dissenter is 2 mana. That's 1 and a black for a 1/1 human. When Doom Dissenter dies, you create a 2/2 black zombie creature token. Well, I always like these creatures that die and replace themselves with another creature, and this one replaces itself with a better creature, and it's a zombie. Really good creature type too. So I actually kind of like this thing, and it's probably going to at least see some play in budget aristocrats decks. Anything that dies and replaces itself with a creature is okay, you know, it's at least worth consideration. Silly name incoming. This is Vizier of Tumbling Sands right here. This is 3 mana, 2 and a blue for a 1/3 human cleric. If you tap it, you can untap another target permanent. You can cycle it for 1 and a blue, and when you do cycle it, you can untap target permanent. I actually think this probably has some kind of fringe use in a weird deck. So there's that. I do like that it can cycle. You know, I think this is pretty good in limited environments. You can untap a creature to put it back on defense or something. There's all kinds of stuff you might want to do with this activated ability. So I think that it's a solid creature, at least for limited play, and it might have some kind of strange application in a funky combo deck. But I mean, ever since Kaladesh, we've been saying that about, you know, one out of every 3 cards or so. Here's Deem Worthy. It's a whole 5 mana. That's 4 and a red for an instant. Deem Worthy deals 7 damage to target creature, or you can cycle it for 3 and a red, and when you do cycle it, you can have it deal 2 damage to target creature. I like this little cycle that we saw today, actually. We just saw Vizier of Tumbling Sands. This is somewhat similar in that it does a thing, but you can cycle it and do that thing as well. In this case, damage to a creature. I like the idea of, you know, drawing a card, hitting something for 2 in limited. That seems fine. And in limited, you'll play this every time you get it because it's instant speed, basically kill nearly anything. So that's pretty cool. And there are times where you can cycle it and kill a small, you know, early game guy too. So seems definitely, you know, limited all-star. Honestly, you'll play this when you get it. Here's Shefet Monitor right here. It's 6 mana. That's 5 and a green for a 6/5 lizard with cycling 3 and a green. When you cycle Shefet Monitor, you may search your library for a basic land card or a desert card. We'll talk about that in a second. Put it onto the battlefield, then shuffle your library. So far, we've only seen 1 desert card, but this seems great in limited too. You know, just you know, a 6 mana 6/5. If you just play it without cycling it, is not a terrible body. That's a winnable body right there. And then cycling for 4, you draw a card, and you go get a basic or the, you know, the 1 desert thing that you've got in your deck. So honestly, the card seems like it's got an awful lot of play on it. And this is another thing that we'll see no standard play, but you'll probably play it when you get it in limited. There's so much you can do with it. Here's what all the hubbub is about as far as the desert is concerned. Here's Sun-scorched Desert right here. Is a land with the type desert, and when Sun-scorched Desert enters the battlefield, it deals 1 damage to target player. You can tap it for a colorless. Looks pretty innocuous, you know. I mean, you might not even play this if you get it in limited, honestly. It's entirely possible that you won't play this, but you might. But in all the, like, you know, mono colorless, mono artifacts, mono Eldrazi, or maybe the Eldrazi artifacts decks, this looks like it's a pretty definite include. You know, you put 4 in there, and before you know it, you've done a couple of damage to your opponent you otherwise wouldn't have done. So, you know, it's good in those. It's probably going to be played in Commander a lot, I would imagine. So there's that too. Just solid all-around card. Doesn't look like it does much, but we'll see play. We'll see play in a couple of fringe strategies. Here's Stir the Sands right here. It's 6 mana. That's 4 and 2 black for a sorcery. Create 3 2/2 black zombie creature tokens. You can also cycle it for 4, 3 and a black, and when you cycle it, you can create a 2/2 black zombie creature token. Okay, so yet again, really decent and limited, one would think. You know, not only do you draw the card for 4 mana, but you also get a zombie, and that's, you know, solid at least. Or if you've got all 6 mana, you can develop a pretty decent board right then and there. So, I mean, all in all, nothing to write home about, but at least a decent, you know, limited uncommon. Here's Grim Strider right here. This is my vote for favorite art of the day. It's 4 mana. That's 3 and a black for 6/6 horror, and it gets -1/-1 for each card in your hand. Okay, so potential 4 mana 6/6 here, but it's more than likely going to be like a 4 mana 3/3, which is still playable in limited. This also looks like a really, really solid limited uncommon, you know, especially in draft where you're building the Heckbent deck, you know, the deck that wants to have 0 or 1 cards in its hand. And then suddenly you've got a 4 mana 5/5 or a 4 mana 6/6. So this is definitely playable in limited all day, because even if it's a 4 mana 3/3, solid bargain. Check out Quarry Hauler right here. We got another one of these kind of cards. It's 4 mana, 3 and a green for a 4/3 camel. Yet another camel. And when Quarry Hauler enters the battlefield, for each kind of counter on target permanent, put another kind of that counter on it, or remove one from it. So this is in a similar vein to some other stuff we've seen recently. Skyship Plunderer, Maulfist Revolutionary. It can put a counter on something. We'll see a card coming up here really soon, actually, that this matters with from today. But it also matters with other stuff, you know, anything like Oracle's Vault. There's a bunch of stuff, actually, that this works with. But do note that it can also take -1/-1 counters off of creatures, which will be very important in limited as well. Also, the body is decent for limited. You know, I just said 4 mana 3/3s in limited are at least okay. You know, they're sort of the baseline. And this is a 4 mana 4/3, so that's not bad right there. And the extra added value is nice. There will often be a -1/-1 counter to take off of something, or you can just like make something a little bit better too. That seems good. Here's Heaven and Earth right here. I'm a little annoyed by the name of this Aftermath card, because it's the first one I've noticed that doesn't follow the 2 formula. You know, the middle word should be 2, but this it appears to be Heaven and Earth. But anyway, Heaven is X and a green for X damage to each creature with flying. Earth is 2 red in X, and you can cast it out of your graveyard. Obviously, it's got Aftermath. And Earth deals X damage to each creature without flying. Okay, so the half you cast out of your hand is like a hurricane that doesn't deal damage to players. And then the Earth half that you cast out of your graveyard is like an earthquake that costs an extra red and doesn't hit players. So, you know, it's okay. Seems like it might actually possibly see some sideboard play, although it probably not. Probably not, but I wouldn't put it past this. And this is just a fantastic limited card. You know, you want to kill flyers, and you want to kill everything on the ground, too. So, you know, you'd probably play this if you get it in limited and you're playing the green-red deck. Although, to be clear, honestly, you don't have to be playing the green-red deck. You might just be playing the green X deck, and this is a fantastic sideboard card for you in limited too, so keep that in mind. Here's Cryptic Serpent right here. This is the last card that I'll keep the graphic up and talk about without seeing my beautiful face. But this is actually on the fringe. I think that this is at least budget playable in standard. This is 7 mana, but we'll talk about that. 5 and 2 blue for a 6/5 Serpent, but it costs 1 less to cast for each instant or sorcery spell in your graveyard. Okay, so if you can get this down to 2 blue, it is a 6/5 vanilla guy for just 2 mana. That's a great deal, right? Like, you know, I've liked the amount of stuff that they're doing like this recently. We saw Bedlam Reveler in the last set. We saw Gearseeker Serpent. There's obviously Metalwork Colossus, and, you know, Gurmag Angler, I guess, is the OG, but that's only from Fate Reforged like 2 years ago. So, you know, I like this recent slew of creatures that get much easier to cast depending on what's in your graveyard or what's in play, all of that. So, big fan of stuff like this, and I actually think it could see some budget play. I'm going to try it out. Definitely possible. I mean, a 2 or even 3 mana 6/5 is a freaking-tastic deal, so we'll give it a shot. But this is the first card that I want to actually talk about on camera here, because it's generated a fair amount of controversy since it came out last night. Is it good or not? This is Pyramid of the Pantheon right here. It just costs 1 mana for an artifact. You pay 2 and you tap it. Add 1 mana of any color to your mana pool and put a brick counter on Pyramid. You tap it and add 3 mana of any 1 color to your mana pool. Activate this ability only if there are 3 or more brick counters on Pyramid. It's okay. Not terrible. Like, it'll probably go in some kind of combo deck like the Metalwork Colossus. Well, I won't really call that a Colossus deck. We'll just call it the Paradox Engine deck. Could play this, you know, definitely. Definitely. It fixes your mana. And although you have to pump an extra mana into it to fix your mana, you still get that brick counter, and that's what it's all about. Because once you get 3 brick counters, this is crazy acceleration and a little bit of fixing too. So, like, I like the card, and you can't just judge it in a vacuum necessarily. We already know more about this card than we would know if we were just judging it in a vacuum, you know? Right now, it just looks like, oh, a 1 mana artifact you have to pump 6 mana into before it gives you the 3 mana that you want out of it. Yeah, sure, it sounds bad or whatever. But also, it's a 1 mana artifact in a set where, you know, in a format at least, where artifacts matter greatly, especially 1-drop artifacts. We're always looking for decent 1-drop artifacts. Improvise matters a lot. Delirium even matters a little bit. So, you know, just being an artifact for just 1 mana is a big swing in this card's favor, I think. So, depending on what kind of deck you're trying to build, I think this might actually go in. Now, just straight up artifacts matters decks for things like Unlicensed Disintegration, this probably doesn't go in. But combo decks, or decks that, you know, gradually build tempo into a big combo on turn 5 or 6, this could see some kind of play in those too. And don't forget, we've got a bunch of cards like Plunderer, Malphus, Revolutionary, and the Camel we just saw that can put extra brick counters on this. So all I'm saying is don't count it out. There's probably some kind of use for this outside of just Commander, which you'll probably see some play in too. Now, if you're a Zombies player, today was another day for you. You've already seen a 5-mana Liliana. You saw Liliana's Mastery or Liliana's Expertise, whatever they ended up translating it as. We saw that like yesterday. And today, we saw 3 more zombie-centric cards that actually, 2 of them at least, might be standard playable. So let's take a look at the one that I'm kind of most excited about, and it's the one that's not even standard playable. This is Lord of the Accursed right here. Lord of the Accursed. He's 3 mana, 2 and a black for a 2/3 zombie. Nothing special so far, but hey, check this out. Other zombies you control get +1/+1, and we're not done. You can pay 1 and a black and tap it to have all your zombies gain menace until end of turn. Solid. Super solid in like budget zombie decks, and in the last 2 days we've seen 2 Anthem effects for budget zombies. That's super awesome. Like mono black zombies, anybody? Looking good, probably, you know. You got Crypt Breaker, you got this, you got Relentless Dead, you got a bunch of stuff actually outside of just those cards too. So Kalitas, but there's stuff. But although that probably the deck wouldn't be budget if we had Kalitas, but who cares? Anyway, like, this is actually just really exciting. You probably won't see a whole lot of standard play, but budget mono black zombies, we will build that deck. And in Commander, you zombies players have got yourselves yet another Anthem effect, and for fairly cheap. Like, yeah, it's boltable, it's killable, whatever, but it's a 3-mana Anthem effect that can also make all your zombies go through with menace, like pseudo evasion. That's a lot of value on 1 card. That is 2 extremely desirable things on 1 card for just 3 mana. So you've got yourself an early game Anthem effect right now, Commander players, and I couldn't be happier for you. Card looks super sweet. But here's a possibly standard playable 1-drop zombie right here. This is Dread Wanderer, just 1 black mana for a 2/1 zombie jackal. Dread Wanderer enters the battlefield tapped, and you can pay 3 mana, that's 2 and a black, to return Dread Wanderer from your graveyard to the battlefield. Activate this ability only anytime you can cast a sorcery, and only if you're heck bent, only if you have 1 or fewer cards in your hand. So late in the game, this can come back like pretty much every turn, because you'll be in top deck mode, probably, you know. So it's just another great 1-drop zombie, you know. It already had Crypt Breaker. Now we're at critical mass. We have like 8 1-drop zombies. That's really good, and this one has 2 power. That's pretty sweet. That's like, what was it, Tormented Dead or Tortured Dead? I'll put the card right here. It was from like Theros block. It's very reminiscent of that, but it can just keep coming back over and over. That's sweet. And it can block, which usually stuff like this cannot do, so that's pretty dope too. Just, you know, big fan. Right creature type, right power toughness, right casting cost. There's a lot to like about this card, and if Zombies is going to see standard play, this might be in it if the deck wants to be aggressive. Here's Plague Belcher right here. I love this name. It's 3 mana, 2 and a black for a zombie beast that's 5/4 with menace. A 3 mana 5/4 zombie with menace. And when Plague Belcher enters the battlefield, you put 2 -1/-1 counters on target creature you control. Whenever another zombie you control dies, each opponent loses 1 life. Okay, so turn 1 Dread Wanderer, turn 2 Hapatra, turn 3 this, and you get yourself a snake, and you can get your Wanderer back in a turn or 2. So that's, you know, at least a decent play line right there, decent turn sequence. But I really do like this with Hapatra. Let me just say that again, because you're going to get a snake out of it if you have to kill one of your guys, and you're probably going to want to kill your 1 or 2 drop. Hopefully it's one that can come back. So, you know, all that's good. This has a sort of Zulaport Cutthroaty kind of ability. It's Blood Artist, whatever, you know. Whatever you want to call that. But making them lose a life whenever a zombie dies is super great, especially considering a zombie will probably die when you play it. And, by the way, there's more versatility on it. There's a lot of versatility in this set. Don't know if you've noticed that, but you can also play this as a 3 mana 3/2 with Menace, which is still a decent deal considering the creature type is nice. So, you know, lots of stuff that you can do with this, and like, if you can just have like a sack outlet out or something like that, then you can make your opponent lose a fair amount of life once you have this out, and it's a crazy threat. Just like, what else do you want from a card? For just 3 mana, this does so much. But on to the next. Here's Anointed Procession right here. It's 4 mana, 3 and a white for an enchantment. If an effect would create 1 or more tokens under your control, it creates twice that many of those tokens instead. Yeah. That does this. Isn't that crazy? Commander Tokens players, you have got yourselves a card. Right now, this is really, really good in Commander Tokens all day. Not really sure what else it's going to do. I mean, for 4 mana, it seems kind of locked out of standard play, especially considering it's probably not going to do anything the turn it enters play. So, you know, whatever. I'm just not a huge fan. Like, I guess, no. I guess it works with Embalm, you know, but that'll have to be next turn. I'm not really seeing a bunch of standard play with it. Like, sure, Servo Exhibition will give you 4 things, and like Planeswalkers that create tokens will give you a couple of things. Maybe that's what you do. You play a Planeswalker that creates tokens, then next turn you play this, and suddenly you can get 2 tokens out of your Walker in 1 turn. I don't know. This does some stuff in standard, but I think 4 mana is just an awful lot for this effect in a competitive format. But in Commander, you guys go crazy. You know, Lingering Souls is awesome. Secure the Waste just got ridiculous, so have fun with that. But here's our God of the Day right here. We actually got a God and a Planeswalker today, but we finally get to see the green God. This is Rhonas, the Indomitable, although I love this. It's either Spanish or Portuguese right here. Rhonas El Indomito. I want to start just calling him El Indomito because that sounds awesome. But he is a legendary creature God. He's a 5/5 with Death Touch and Indestructible, of course. And Rhonas the Indomitable can't attack or block unless you control another creature with power 4 or greater. And you can pay 2 and a green to have another target creature you control get +2/+0 and trample until end of turn. Okay, so this might be the best God we've seen so far. Just 3 mana for a 5/5 Death Touch Indestructible is absolutely crazy, and this is probably the easiest condition that we've seen to fill. I mean, we just saw Exemplar of Strength the other day, plus we've got a bunch of stuff in Standard that at just 2 mana can be 4 power super, super easily, you know. So already that, or you can just play a 4-drop the next turn that has 4 power, and that's even easier to do. Nearly like every good 4-drop, right, has 4 power. So, you know, this is a very, very, very easy condition to fulfill. No shortage of things to make this thing swing as early as turn 4. Not to mention, you can just, again, play a 4-drop that's big enough to activate it, trigger it. So, have a lot of fun with this, because this card looks ridiculous. Here's the last card of the day right here. This is Nissa, Steward of Elements right here. And there's a lot to like about this Planeswalker. It's a blue, a green, and X. A Planeswalker with X in the casting cost for a Planeswalker with X loyalty. Look at how that works. You can +2 and scry 2. You can pay 0 loyalty. And look at the top card of your library. If it's a land card or a creature card with converted mana cost less than or equal to the number of loyalty counters on Nissa, you may put that card onto the battlefield. And her ultimate is -6. Untap up to 2 target lands you control. They become 5/5 elemental creatures with flying and haste until end of turn. They're still lands. Okay, so a lot of talk about this so far, and a lot of it focuses, honestly, around not even the functionality of the cards. People are sick of seeing the Gatewatch, which I understand, but Mark Rosewater has already said that starting in Hour of Devastation, the very next set, they're going to start focusing more on, you know, new characters, new Planeswalkers, which I think a lot of people will like, but who knows what that means story-wise. Maybe Bolas will kill off a couple of, like, Gatewatch Planeswalkers, which I actually think people are rooting for, from what I've seen in comment sections at this point. But in any case, who knows what's going to happen with that. But as far as the functionality of the card, a lot of cool stuff about it. First of all, it's a Simic Nissa. That's awesome. Simic Nissa is great, which opens up the door for all kinds of stuff, you know, like Boros Gideon. Anybody like Orzhov or Dimir, Liliana would be super sweet. So lots of cool stuff. You know, Azorius Chase would be dope. So just, you know, if you're going to keep making Gatewatch Planeswalkers Wizards, that would be, start doing this because I like this. But also it's X. It's got X in the casting cost and ends up with X loyalty, which is another really interesting experiment. You can basically make this a 3 loyalty Planeswalker on turn 3 if you wanted to, you know, just pay 3/4, X equals 1, and then you go ahead and +2 her. You haven't protected her in any way, so keep that in mind. But you +2 her and you can go ahead and scry 2, which not only fixes your draw for next turn, but also makes it to where you can sort of scry up a creature or a land to make sure that you synergize with her 0 ability. And her 0 ability is the best thing about the card, definitely. You cast lands or you play lands for essentially free. That's pretty cool. You can get extra lands per turn out of it. That's pretty awesome. Or you can play creatures for absolutely free if you've got enough loyalty on her. And again, her scry ability helps you do just that. So as far as card advantage goes, that checks out all day. You know, as long as you're able to scry up the right things, then you'll be able to easily get whatever you want to off of her 0 ability. Especially considering, like, if you play her late enough in the game and you just, like, dump all your mana into her, like, she can be a huge loyalty planeswalker. Like, something people haven't actually talked about is the very late game ability to play a Nissa with more loyalty than her ultimate. You know, don't scoff at that. In very late game situations, it's possible to play this with 7 or 8 loyalty. It's not actually unheard of. You know, this is a mana sink planeswalker, which is just something we've never seen. So you can't. You know, there's a million different ways to look at it. You can play this, you know, on turn 15 with a bunch of loyalty. Go ahead and ultimate her and swing over flying for 10 damage. That's pretty sweet right there, and keep her out. That's cool. Or you can just play her as a, you know, 1 or 2 or 3 loyalty planeswalker. Play this for 4 or 5 mana. She's still pretty good. You'll get to her ultimate a little fast. You know, you can go ahead and scry. You can get some card advantage out of her. Just lots and lots and lots to like about this planeswalker. Earlier I said that versatility has been sort of the key word in this set. And this is a lot of versatility right here. You know, she can be anywhere from a 1 loyalty planeswalker to anywhere on the spectrum, depending on what point in the game it is. So don't sleep on this Nissa. I don't think that she's incredible. I really don't. I don't think she's the best planeswalker we've seen in a long time or anything. I just think that she's got a lot of play on her. She's extremely, extremely versatile, and there's so much that can be done with her depending on when you decide to play her. So, and doing that is probably pretty skill intensive, to be honest with you. Knowing when to play this Nissa and get as much value out of her as possible is probably going to be a tough decision in some games. So just remember that. I don't think this is the best planeswalker ever, but I do think that this is probably the most interesting planeswalker ever. There's just so much to talk about. But she'll also have to find a home, which, you know, she's got 2 years to do it or whatever, but she's got to find a home. And right now, I don't know that she has one. That's all the cards from today. There were a lot of them. There were like 16 or 17 cards to talk about today. So I hope that we did that in enough time. I know we're over 30 minutes on the recording here, but who knows what the final product will be. But if you enjoyed this video, I hope that you like it. That helps me out more than anything you can do. You can follow me on Twitter at SBMTGDev. You can sub so you get all the rest of the spoilers. Make sure you hit the bell so you get the notifications. And, you know, my spoiler is coming up in just 3 days or so. This is April the 13th. You'll see my spoiler, my special preview card for Amonkhet. Make sure you sub for that too. And very, very soon after that, the whole set will be spoiled, and I'm going to start making decks. Already working on some stuff, but you let me know what you want to see. In any case, I'm Deb from SBMTG. Thanks for watching, my wizards.